Hello everyone, welcome to the Jewish Week Online. I'm your host, Arlen Herman. We had the opportunity to attend the Jewish Futures Conference and hear from leaders in the community about how technology is transforming the way we learn and connect. Let's take a closer look.
Jewish education is at a crossroads right now. They're trying to figure out that next big thing to help enhance the classroom experience. And you're doing something really interesting with Smartboard. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, for all of my lessons, everything is really based off of a smartboard. The students have the source material in front of them, but everything's very visual. Everything's very interactive. It's no longer just reading the text, but it's about interacting with the material, about looking at the board and being able to differentiate the different verses, to be able to see really in a very clear way what the text is saying. You know, for example, if you're learning a piece of Talmud, you're able to look at it on the board and you're able to highlight what's the question, what's the answer, what does Rashi say, and just making learning more accessible to more students.
And you know, the Smartboard in a lot of schools sometimes almost like use like a paperweight. They don't know how, they don't know how to use it correctly. You have this like, now it's like $15,000 or maybe less now for a Smartboard. How have you seen the Smartboard sort of enhancing the classroom experience?
So it's really about making it interactive. It's about the Smartboard enables you to build activities where the students are supposed to come to the board and really be a part of the experience. You know, for example, like I was explaining to them about, let's say how the C splits, and it's not, we just don't just watch the picture of it, but they come to the board and they press the button and then the C splits, and it's just about using the tools that are there to make it interactive. It's not about being just a projector, and if you're using it as a projector, that's great, but it's about really getting the students up to the board and participating in the activities.
One of the challenges in Jewish education was there's not like anything out there specifically for Limudei Kodesh, and that's like I guess what people are trying to think, like, how can we now harness that power now?
So there's a database that has like thousands of Smartboard lessons that people have made, so people could use that. And again, it's just about taking your creativity as a teacher and innovating it and making it. Students are going to all have iPads or tablets, and really just about enabling them to become a part of the learning experience.
What excites you about Jewish education?
It's exciting. I don't know. You could relate it to our life. It's just to read the text and to be able to say, oh my God, that applies to my life. What happened so many, thousands of years ago really happens in our daily lives. You know, I was teaching my students about Rachav and spies, and like a similar situation happened with the Secret Service. And again, like as when I mentioned in class, every single one of my students are like, oh my God, that's happening right now. So again, it's just about harnessing the tools that our students are familiar with. They're all familiar with technology, and enabling them to use what they like in order to learn Judaic studies. Innovation
is transforming organizations, and sometimes it's difficult to understand the possibilities. And with Birthright Israel Next, you've done some really interesting things to connect people coming off the trip. Alumni are seeking that connection to their communities, back to their buses, and their overall experience. Tell us what your view is about innovation, how Birthright Israel Next is using it.
I think the real trick to innovation is learning how to build on what exists to the extent that it's possible, and then taking what exists and tweaking it. So one of our big insights is that there is actually a lot happening on the ground in the Jewish world, but it was opaque. So we are developing technological interventions like phone apps, mobile apps, that sort of thing, and personal interventions to make apparent to the alums things that are happening on the ground and opportunities for them to create their own things on the ground.
And one of the great things about Next is that you're able to, you have a large base. Every year you have 30,000, 40,000 people that are coming off a program. How do you figure out the best techniques to engage with people?
Well, it's really up to the people themselves. The truth is, just like you heard from Courtney, the first person who spoke, when there's a corporate approach, it doesn't work. We really have imbued the ethos, the do-it-yourself ethos, and we believe very strongly in providing the assets and the opportunities and then getting out of the way. and letting the alums themselves, within their circle of friends, figure out the sorts of things they want to pursue, they want to learn more, they want to involve themselves in, and make sure they have the equivalent of guides who can help deepen those experiences.
What do you think is going to happen in the next 5 years or next? Obviously, with every new technology, every new type of environment, things change. What's your vision in the next 5 years?
My vision is for a Jewish communal landscape that is ripe to receive and engage the 20-somethings that will continue to be moved and touched by the birthright experience. We've got a ways to go, but that's my vision.
And another thing about technology in organizations is that trying to figure out the right technology. What have you seen work?
Again, it's something that provides information that the individuals need. For example, the Shabbat program that we run, having a page that provides the resources and the assets that an individual can go to themselves, get the information, and then do Shabbat their way. It's resource based rather than do this or do that based.
And especially like with network weaving now,
yeah.
And everyone trying to figure out like ways to connect to each other. What about in terms of like, social media and Facebook and Twitter? What's happening in that direction?
We use all of those. And again, what we find is that what sparks conversation on Facebook or the Twitter following, etc., is sparked by communicating something that's of interest to the alums, and then they themselves take it over and make it theirs. That's what matters.
And having seen the Shabbat program in action, having hosted a number, and seeing how those it's like, I had an earlier interview with someone, network offline and online, where it's an important synergy.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I think it's exciting and exactly the kind of weaving that you want to do. It's exactly what you want to do. Take a look at our Facebook page. We've updated, and it's pretty cool what's going on now. Got a lot of good stuff.
Jewish education is evolving, and through innovation, we're seeing dramatic changes in the way we connect in classrooms. What does innovation mean to you?
So today we see people taking a hammer to the classroom because we know the classroom is not enough to nurture a Jewish soul. So instead we have congregations that work with the Jewish Education Project like Community Synagogue of Rye. And yes, they put a hammer to the classroom, but instead they've built a model, and I'll just give you a great example, where 5th and 6th graders are in Havarot, small groups of about 10 children, and every week they meet in each other's homes. And you say, okay, what are they doing there? Their teacher, or you'd say their guide, talks to the kids about what are their questions, what are they passionate about, and each week the learning speaks to the questions of these young people. And frankly, sometimes if the learning takes them to the mall, to the yoga studio, but it's guided by the interests and passions of the young people, rooted in Jewish tradition, and technology is there next to those deep relationships. They get Skype Hebrew every week. And the family is important, we know that. And so part of this model, it's called Havara. The families meet together twice a month in the synagogue, celebrate Shabbat, celebrate the holiday. What's that about? That's young Jewish people growing up and saying, there are people who care about me, there are people who know me. And when I actually have a question in my life, I don't just turn to the internet, I get to turn to Jewish tradition to help me figure out how to live my life. That's innovation.
And with technology coming into the classroom, it's important to have the online and offline version. Talk about the importance of that.
I think one thing we hold is that you can't just say we're going to build it on the net. There has to be the link between on land, what are those relationships that are happening, and online. And just an example, at Community Synagogue of Rye, these children receive Skype Hebrew tutoring every week. The person who tutors them knows them from being in person. So when the Skype tutor calls in and sees the parent in the home, the child's room, they already have a face-to-face relationship. So I think today innovation means our children need to be known and cared about, and they need quick, savvy connections for what their questions are. That can be the net, but it's got to be founded in those relationships.
As you can see, technology is transforming the way we learn and connect. This is Arwen Herman, and thanks for watching.